Excellent. Okay, we're recording now. Welcome everybody. Starting a few minutes late. I hope you're ready for excellence. So welcome to whatever day this is, day 4. Let's just forget about what day it is. This is Weekday Somatics. Happy to have you join me. Obviously, if you're here live, you know you're here live. For those who are joining through the recording, which is in the future from now, let that blow your mind. Welcome. And let's start by sitting, if that's comfortable for you. As usual, if that's not adequately comfortable for you, then don't do that. And I really mean that, because this is a process of unlearning the habits of strain, the habits of self-torture these habits of self-torture are so commonplace and encouraged in our daily lives by most of what surrounds us. So we become blind to these habits, and we actually, I'll put it in first person rather than projecting it onto you or making it inclusive. You can make it inclusive if it's true for you. What I find is that I am blind to these habits of self-torture. And not only that, but when I become aware of these habits of self-torture, I actually discover that it's what I have been working hard to maintain. So I have been working hard to maintain self-torture, and I've been calling it something good. I've been calling it getting ahead. I've been calling it fitting in. I've been calling it survival. I've been calling it healing. How twisted is that? But that's what I've been calling it. I've been calling it the pursuit of healing, at the very least. Because most of what I've pursued in the name of healing has been what? Only self-torture. It's only resulted in more misery. So this is really, truly, radically different. So I'm inviting you to really receive that. I'm inviting myself to receive that. So we're sitting here, and if we're not sitting here, then we're really honoring what's true for me now. Okay, what's true for this body, mind in this moment. What's true is not going to be what's true for everyone else. That's a big part of the unlearning process. That's what, at least what I find is a big part of it, is I can't look out there. I can't look externally to tell me what I should do, how I should be, what's right, what's true. I can't do that. When I do that, I only get twisted up. That's the self-torture. Then I'm learning habits that are not true. I'm learning habits that have been perpetuated by this big lie. The big lie that somebody out there knows the answer. So instead, I'm inviting us all to really start to tune into the possibility that the answer isn't out there. We're not going to find it. It's not something we can emulate. I'm pausing because for me, that's a big deal. For me, that's a really big deal. So I hope that maybe that's really a big deal for you too, and that you could let that in, that really the answer is not something we can emulate. It's not something that's indirect like that, that I can see it and then emulate it and create something that appears to be the correct thing, and then I'll win. It doesn't seem to work like that. That's actually the recipe for self-torture. So if sitting is appropriate, do that. If sitting is uncomfortable, distractingly uncomfortable, then only you can know that. Only you can tell the truth about that. And only you can choose to be gentle. You could choose to let yourself off the hook and then maybe be curious about why on earth you thought being on the hook was going to be helpful to you. Right? That's what I do. I realize, why did I think that being on the hook was going to be good? So here we are, and we're in whatever posture is appropriate. As I said, I'm sitting. Okay, I'm sitting on the floor. You could sit on the floor. You could sit on a bed. You could sit on a chair. It could be a hard chair. It could be a soft chair. It could be whatever. Let it be what's appropriate for you in this moment. Now, how can you know if it's appropriate for you? Well, this is a process of discovering that. I'm going to close my eyes because maybe that will help me start to become a little bit more somatically focused rather than focused on the apparent external world. Because if I'm looking for answers out there, clues out there, which I'm conditioned to do unconsciously, then I'm not going, I find that I don't get as good of results with this process. So I find it helpful to close my eyes and just tune into the felt sense. And then start to notice that I have this image. I use the word image. You may not be a particularly visual person. You may not have a clear visual image in your mind, but just see if there's something there that you can discover for yourself about how you have an image of some kind, a vague image, a felt image, some kind of mapping that you unconsciously perhaps rely upon as a guide to tell you how you should be holding yourself. What's correct, what's upright. And then what I would like to invite you to for the next 20 minutes or so is this possibility that we don't have to consult that image. We don't have to rely upon that as our guide. We don't have to judge and try to self-correct based on some conditioning, some past learning, some idea that we have, no matter how subtle, no matter how persistent, no matter how much I have believed that that is true unconsciously, no matter how much I've identified with that posture, with that holding, with that image, with that idea, no matter how uncomfortable I might become, I get to choose to rest here and continue to be as truthful as I can. So when I say to be as truthful as I can, what I mean is, and I'm inviting you now just to notice, where am I making unnecessary effort? So here, all I'm interested in this moment is just to be still and to discover the greatest ease possible anchored in this stillness. So that may seem completely impossible. That may seem completely easy. It may seem like anything, but let's just explore this openly and honestly now. Let's just be open to this possibility of stillness. So actually to be physically still. Now, notice when I say still, notice your habit. I'll notice my habit. If I say still, what do I try to do to generate stillness? Do I try to straighten myself out? Do I try to get myself upright? Do I alter my breathing? Just wanting to become aware of my habit. So here I am, and come to find out maybe I'm pretty suggestible. All somebody has to do around me is suggest that maybe I should be still. Hey, you, sit still. And it activates this unconscious conditioning where I strain. I make unnecessary effort trying to emulate what I think stillness should be. But instead, what I'm wanting in this moment is to explore the actuality of stillness, not what I think it should be, not an externally referenced image, but rather the actual direct experience of stillness. So can I just tune into that? Can I just trust the possibility that that's really here and available? And here's a clue, okay? So stillness, at least logically, I think we can see that this is true. Stillness is naturally exists in the absence of any effort or strain. So if I'm not making any effort, maybe I can just rest more deeply in the stillness that's here. So I'm observing my habits of strain. I'm observing how it is that, for example, I notice in my lower abdomen that there's some sensation, and I'm not sure really what to label that sensation, but let's say numbness, lack of clarity, discomfort, perhaps. But I might label that at some other moment. I might label the same sensation any number of ways. I might call it anxiety. I might call it frustration. I might call it, I don't like you. I don't like what you're doing. You're causing me problems. It's all about these things that you're doing. It's all about the world out there. It's about circumstances. It's about the government. It's about my neighbors. It's about all these things. So I can interpret the sensation in all of these different ways unconsciously. But here and now, I'm just tuning into the actuality of the sensation, and I'm just curious to find out, what is it really? Of course, I'm inviting you to do the same. I hope that's clear. So just notice where it is that you are aware of sensation, that you can allow yourself to be curious about the actual nature of the sensation, and you can just observe your habit of actually protecting this unconscious, fearful, tense state. And what do I call it? I call it me. Who needs protection? Well, I do. Who's frustrated? I am. Who's angry? I am. Whose pain is it? It's my pain. So I identify with this sensation, but I don't even know what the sensation is. So here and now, I'm just sitting anchored in the stillness, just allowing myself to be gently and openly aware of the actual nature of this sensation. Now, as I do this, I can begin to soften. Now, softening is not something I'm going to actively do, but it's something that I can participate in by acknowledging and recognizing that the actual nature of this experience that I've called, whatever I've called it, is in truth unknown to me. I don't know what the actual nature of this experience is. I have names for it. I have memories that I can consult to tell me what it is. But of course, I've never experienced this before. So how could memory help me? Memory is not going to be useful in this instance. So I'm going to just let the memories come and go. I'm going to let the ideas come and go. I'm going to let the images come and go. And I'm going to now observe my impulses to fix it, to correct it. So I might notice, for example, a habit of trying to find the right position. So here I am, I'm sitting, and now I've got this sensation and an interpretation of the sensation, and that interpretation says this is wrong, something about this is wrong. I consult my image. The image says, well, I'm not quite upright. I seem to be tilted. I seem to be somehow off center. I seem something's wrong. So I noticed my impulses to try and take action, to correct it, to fix it, to work hard to take charge of my life so that I can be successful, so I can finally start to get ahead on this disaster that I've called my life. But this is where the truth-telling comes into play, because I've never really succeeded in that. I've tried thousands of times every day. When I really observe, I notice thousands of times every day that I am taking corrective action. So what's a corrective action? It's trying to tilt to the left or tilt to the right, doing it as I'm saying it, okay? That's how suggestible I am. All I have to do is just think it, say it, and I do it. But can I remain still? So I notice these habits of trying to correct. Lifting one buttock, squinting, squeezing around the eyes, pressing the tongue against the top of the mouth. I have indentations in my tongue a lot of the time because I'm pressing my tongue in my mouth against my teeth, trying to do what? Who knows? Trying to fix my life. But it hasn't worked. It's not going to work. So in this moment, I'm allowing myself to be anchored in this stillness. I'm discovering the stillness. And rather than trying to correct, even if I notice some discomfort, I'm not going to take corrective action. Although I will say, please remember, don't push yourself, don't strain. So there's a really fine line. My experience with this work is that the more that I am gentle with it, the easier and more pleasurable it becomes. But the more I strain and try to get it right, the less enjoyable it is. And the less positive effects it has in my life. So I'm inviting you to just be really gentle. I say that a lot, but it's important, I think. Now, we can add into this, well, first of all, let me say, just to sit in stillness. On the Q&A, one of the Q&As last week, I talked about how we could view some of the things that I share or guide in these practical portions to be like techniques that we can play with. So these are techniques that we can explore and play with. And one of these techniques is just simply to sit in stillness. I find that stillness, sitting in stillness, and that could be standing in stillness, or it could be lying in stillness. It could be reclining in stillness. It could be anything, any posture, but it's to be anchored in stillness. I find this is a very powerful foundational technique, and I don't think we really need to add anything more to it. So in and of itself, it's very powerful. I say we don't need to add anything to it, but we can. So if just sitting here in stillness is plenty enough for you, just continue with that if that's what's right for you now. Or if you need to rest from resting. Isn't that funny? I need to rest from resting. The resting becomes so deep, I need to rest from it. So if you need to rest from resting, that's fine. But we could also add into this, if we want, a breathing focus. So continuing to sit in stillness, and stillness means I'm not moving unnecessarily. I'm not trying to correct anything. I'm not so quick to believe my assumptions, my false images, my memories, my ideas about what these sensations mean, about how I am actually positioned in space, about what is good and what is bad. I'm just not believing them for this moment. I'm just sitting in stillness, and I'm allowing for the sensations to reveal their true nature to me. I promise you, at least from my part, my experience is that this is really a very powerful technique, because I'm just allowing the sensations to reveal their true nature, rather than me being falsely satisfied, which is to say dissatisfied, but wrongly believing that I'm satisfied, with a superficial, incorrect, memory-based, externally referenced image or idea of what these sensations mean and how I should fix them. So instead, I'm allowing them to reveal their true nature. And as they do, I discover that I can soften, because I realize, oh, I'm making that unnecessary effort. I'm doing the tension. So the buttocks can soften, the thighs can soften, the groin can soften, the lower abdomen can soften. But it's not my idea of what softening is. It's not my idea of what that should be or feel like. It's the actuality of it, which it reveals itself to me as I am still and I allow the true nature of the experience, the sensation, to reveal itself. Okay, so I said we could add breathing to this. So how could we do that? Well, the way that I'm suggesting is to simply allow the natural breath to reveal where it is that I'm holding, tensing, straining. So there are a lot of different ways to do this, I suppose. I'm going to guide one way now. Try it out, okay, if it seems appropriate to you. So allow for the inhalation to be the active portion of the breathing. I'm not suggesting that this is the one right way to breathe. I'm just saying, for now, if appropriate for you, explore this possibility of allowing the inhalation to be active and allow the exhalation to be, well, I'll call it passive. I'm not really sure what better word to use. Okay, it's not entirely passive, but to allow the elasticity of your supple torso, your supple rib cage, your supple abdomen to pleasurably allow for a slow, controlled, yet seemingly effortless release of the breath. So let's just explore that possibility for a few rounds of breath. And I'll add to that, allow the breath then to guide your awareness to recognize where you're straining. So for example, I notice a tendency, I can't really do this and talk at the same time, so I'm not going to be doing it as I'm talking, but I can tell you that I have often noticed a tendency for myself to exaggerate the movements, the natural movements of the breath, to exaggerate the inhalation and to strain against habitual tension, both in the abdomen and in the chest, in the rib cage. So as I breathe, I allow for the breath to become gentle so that I'm not straining. Instead, in order to allow for a natural and satisfying breath, I'm noticing where I'm resisting that. And I'm softening. Now, like so many of these things, this is, at first, it can present a lot of challenges. So that's okay. If you experience challenges with this, let me say, don't become short of breath. So oftentimes we overbreathe habitually as we start to tune into the natural breath. It can trigger things in the nervous system suggesting that we're hungry for air, and we can start to try to counter that with more strain, more overbreathing. So if we push that edge too much, we can just generate more strain, more effort, more discomfort. So don't push, don't strain. If you feel short of breath, just allow yourself to play with that edge. Don't try and force the breathing to relax too much too quickly. Just explore and allow the breath to guide where there is habitual tension, where there's numbness, where there's discomfort, where there's a habit of strain or exaggeration. Allow the shoulders and the chest to be like they're draped over your torso. So like a heavy blanket draped over your torso. Don't try to lift them. Don't try to strain against the blanket. Allow that heavy blanket to be comforting as you breathe and feel the breath touching against that heavy blanket draped over your torso so that you can feel those sensations and notice, just as we were doing before, how I have a habit of wrongly ascribing meaning to those sensations, that I consult images and memory to tell me what the sensations mean, and of course, then how to correct whatever it is that I think needs to be corrected. So this is an exploration that allows me to become more aware of those habits, those unconscious habits. And then with that awareness, I'm now given this new opportunity, this opportunity of choice, which is unique. I thought I had choice in the past, but really I was just reacting mechanically, unconsciously. But here, anchored in stillness, I have this choice, which is a new choice. And it's a choice to remain with the stillness and allow the actual nature of the sensations to be revealed to me. Okay, so we're going to wrap up in a few minutes with the practical portion. But I want to wrap up the practical portion with a little bit more activity, lest we fall into the trap of thinking that we have to sit to discover stillness. I want to help. It's a reminder for myself and for all of us that we can discover this stillness, and we can become increasingly aware of the stillness in activity as well. So this is something that can integrate into our daily lives, in our activities. Now, like all of this, it's a process, because we'll become more aware with practice. Initially, it can maybe sometimes seem impossible, difficult, frustrating. Over time, it gets clear, at least for me, that all of those are just wrong interpretations of the sensations that are occurring. But let's just do a few minutes of exploring moving the face. We'll start with the jaw. Maybe we'll only do the jaw, I'm not sure. So I think last week we explored opening and closing the jaw. Let's do a little bit of that again. So let's just allow for the jaw to open just allowing gravity to do that. So don't pull it open, just allow for a release so that gravity opens the jaw. Now it's only going to open as far as it's going to open by means of gravity. So when I do this, I want to find where is that? There's a point at which that's it. That's all that it's going to open by means of gravity alone in this moment. In another moment, it will be different. But in this moment, that's as much as it's going to open by gravity alone. Now, so I'll demonstrate, okay? So that's as far as gravity is going to open my jaw in this moment. But notice that I could open it more. So I'll demonstrate that. So I can use effort to open the jaw more, or I can allow a release of the jaw so that gravity opens the jaw. Now, I wasn't intending this, but now that I've demonstrated that, this seems like a really nice exploration. So what I can do now is I can start to explore that space between the two movements. So the one movement is the opening of the jaw by gravity, which opens the jaw only as far as it does. And then once the jaw is open to that position, I can allow it to rest there for just a moment. Now this sensation is likely to be one that I'm conditioned to find somewhat uncomfortable, not necessarily painful, not necessarily frightening, but just sort of vaguely uncomfortable. Like I don't want to hold that position for a long time, just like this. But I want to just allow for myself to just rest in that position for a moment, discover where am I straining. So just allow the jaw just to be open like that, just relaxed openness. And just notice where there's strain, where there's uncertainty, where there's hesitation, where there's impulses to fix or correct. And now, while maintaining that awareness of the openness and the spaciousness that you have discovered up to this point, open the jaw further using muscular effort. And then slowly release the jaw back to that relaxed open state. So I'll demonstrate. So I'm going to first open the jaw, just allowing gravity to do that. I'm going to pause, tune into the sensation, allow for that sensation to clarify itself so that I can perhaps experience a greater openness or softness in that relaxed open position. Then I'm going to open the jaw further using muscular effort. Then I'm going to slowly release that so that it comes back to rest in the resting open position. And then I'm going to close the jaw. And then my invitation is that we repeat that a few times together. So I'll demonstrate it. So I hope that that was clear. If you're willing to do that, I know it's kind of a strange thing maybe to do, but if you're willing to do that, then I invite you to do that with me a few times now. Okay, so for those of you who are here live and also on the recording, welcome to continue to explore that on your own if you'd like. I find that to be really enjoyable. You don't have to, of course. I'm going to end the recording of this practical portion today. To those who are viewing the recording, thanks for joining me. I'll see you next time. Bye for now.